Let's go ahead and get started. We've got a bit to talk about pre-market here. And then I'll just, as we get a little bit closer to market open and more people are in the room, I'll just kind of recap and give a quick idea of how everything's going to be structured today and just how it's all going to work. One question I already saw was how long will this be? And we'll go as long as it takes. I'm going to do, obviously, live trading at the open. That's probably going to be my heaviest trading part of the day. And then if you have any questions while I'm actually trading some of these setups, please hold on to them actually, write them down. It's going to be hard for me to trade and answer questions at the same time, but I'll come back to these questions afterwards. So, after my trading slows down a little bit, I'll say, okay, if you have any questions about what I just did, go ahead and post them now. And then I'll just run through the list. And then we'll just keep going through questions for the rest of the day. A lot of you sent in some great questions. Thank you for that. I have a big list of those ready to go. So once we're through all the questions, this very well could go until market close. Let me just get through a few of the comments really quick. Okay, so let's just start by talking about pre-market and what I'm looking at. I sent out to you guys last night a list of the main stocks that I was looking at coming into today. And now that it's pre-market, we have a little bit better of an idea of how they're gapping. And that's usually one of the first things I'm looking at is, and that's how I narrow down my watch list. I may start off with a list of 5 to 10 tickers, but I have an idea for each of them what my ideal play is, what I really want to happen in order for me to make a trade. So pre-market, if there's a stock that I wanted to gap up and have a parabolic spike, and I see it gapping down instead, it's pretty easy to say, okay, I'm not going to focus on that one right off the bat. So I'm just kind of going through that process. I have been all morning. It's going to make things a little bit simpler because so far there's really nothing new on my scans. First time all week actually, where my pre-market scanner looking for stocks that are gapping up with decent volume. Not a single new one has come up. So everything on my list right now is whatever I was looking at last night. And hopefully, one or two things starts running near the open so we have a little more interesting to look at. Really quick, just to answer a question. Someone said, I see you're using Thinkorswim. Is that also the broker I trade with? No, I use Thinkorswim for the free charting. I used to trade with them probably for the first 6 months that I was a trader. But I moved on to other brokers, but I got so comfortable with the charting software that I decided that I was going to go ahead and just keep using their free charting and then make my trades through other platforms. Can I talk about my pre-market scanner settings? Absolutely. It's pretty simple for me. I'm looking for stocks pre-market that have traded at least $100,000 in volume, so I really don't have that high of a volume requirement because this is listed stocks. And I'm interested in the lower priced ones, so $15 or under. And then I'm looking for stocks that are gapping up. And I want it to be a decent gap up. I don't want to cast too wide of a net. So I always say 12% or higher. I could have called it 10. I could have called it 15. I settled in the middle at 12. So right now, nothing fits those 3 criteria, but there's no more to it than that. And once stocks, typically hit my scanner in the morning, I would just pull up a daily chart, take a look at what the daily chart looks like, and go from there. And pre-market, do I look at level 2 or just charts? I'll look at both, but I don't typically trade pre-market too often. Volume's a little bit lighter, and I like to wait until market opens in most cases, unless the daily chart setup is just too good to pass up on. But anyway, I'll get back to some of these questions in a minute. Let's just talk about what I'm looking at right now and which ones look the most promising out of the gate. One of my main watches was VLTC, and luckily ETC at Quantex, I can get shares to short of that. I know it's restricted at Wedbush, and it's not easy to borrow, so that means it's probably not at SureTrader. If I wanted to locate VLTC, let's see, what is the cost per share on that? I'd be paying 2.6 cents per share if I want to get it. Now, VLTC is on my scan. Oh, and just really quick, let me say that you can see my Thinkorswim charting application. You see 4 charts. The bottom 2 will be intraday charts. The top right will be an intraday chart. The top left is where I'm going to keep on pretty continuously, changing tickers and looking at what some certain daily charts look like. But VLTC is one of my main interest ones because it has been running the past couple of weeks and now consolidating the last week and a half, where it's pretty much been holding above 7 every single day. And yesterday it had a nice strong up day and got into the 8s. The high ever since this big red day on July 20th was on the 27th, and it was a high of 885. We closed yesterday at 836. So I'm kind of hoping this gets through the $9 area today and can have a nice spike back up towards 10 or the mid 10s, and I can play into this resistance right here that it's set for itself on the 16th and 17th. So VLTC, I see it is gapping up pre-market right now. It looks like the last print was 866. There's a pretty wide spread on the level 2 right now, so we'll see how it actually opens. But if I want to play VLTC, I'm not so much playing off of this 885 resistance at this point because it has consolidated for so long, and up from $7 isn't all that much. So I don't want to look for a play around $9 unless I can tell maybe 15 or 30 minutes into the day that it's really having trouble there. I'd much rather see it break through, have a fast spike up towards 10, and then maybe in the 10 area start thinking about a starter and basing my risk off of these highs and building it as it goes, if it can manage to continue. But VLTC is definitely one of the top ones I'm looking at because it is gapping up and it looks like it might be setting up to have that kind of run that I'm looking for. YRCW is one that's a little bit higher priced than normal for me, and that caught my eye because it was already a couple green days in a row where 4 days ago it had its 52-week lows at 1190, and now it's up into the 15s. And then they released earnings yesterday after hours, and now it's in the 18s. So I'm just looking at this chart and looking for a trade opportunity. It's already through this resistance level right here where it had this little peak up for a few days, topped out around 770, 780, and then faded back off. Now I'm thinking about this $20 area where a couple times it had peaks. This one was through 20 twice in the mid 20s, I'd say about 2050, faded off, and then another pop right back, and this one stops just short of 20. So today it looks like we're going to open in the 18s, and if this has some kind of a morning spike into these resistance levels, I'm going to try short. I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm going to, of course, have a very controlled risk, try to treat it safely, but I'm going to look for $1 or $2 a share fade back. So we'll see if YRCW cooperates. Sometimes with these higher priced stocks that are a little bit more out of my norm, I freeze and I don't pull the trigger. And that's perfectly okay if that happens. You know, I miss trades all the time, and that's just a part of trading. So I'll try not to get too discouraged if that happens, but it's one of the main ones I'm looking at for sure. The three other main ones I was looking at were QUIK, GEVO, and WPCS. And what all of those have in common is that, whoops, I spelled that wrong. QUIK, big run yesterday, faded off, closed middle of the candle, so if it closed well off of its highs. WPCS, I keep typing my tickers wrong today. WPCS, same story. It had a nice morning spike yesterday and then faded back all day, kind of the middle of candle close. And finally, GEVO. And again, had a nice morning spike yesterday, but closed back down a bit. So all three of these I'm looking at today, and I'm hoping at least one of them can have some sort of a spike back towards their highs from yesterday. So in GEVO's case, $3. In WPCS's case, it's $2.32, I believe. Yeah, yesterday's high was $2.32, and QUIK I think was $1.90. And I would like to use those levels as resistance and try to play off of that if any of these can actually start spiking. Right now, WPCS, I mean, it's not really having prints pre-market, so it's hard to tell. The bid right now is 172, the offer is 190. So that's a really wide spread. It's hard to say how that's going to open. GEVO, it looks like it's slightly gapping down. The offer is 259, which is below the previous closing price of 262. And finally, QUIK, maybe a slight gap up there, 153 by 160, and previous close was 152. So I'll have an eye on all three of these, and whichever one can give me that spike that I'm looking for into yesterday's resistance, I'm going to try a short. I'm going to base my risk around yesterday's highs. And I'm not necessarily going to wait for it to get all the way there to start in short. But I'm going to try to be smart about it, because whether I start in 20 cents a share off of the level or 5 cents a share off the level, I'm going to try to size in accordingly and use yesterday highs as my risk. That risk level is not going to move depending on where I start in. But the further away I start in, the smaller I should probably play. Let's see what else is going on. NYMX is one that I'm kind of keeping on radar still. That has trolled me the last couple of days. I had a nice first trade on it, and then I chased a short into weakness on it a couple days ago, took a swing overnight, and wound up covering into strength on it. I panicked out on my short, took a nice loss there. And yesterday tried a long on it actually, and same sort of thing. The little breakout that I thought was happening failed, and then I had to cut it into weakness. It shook me out. So today I'm just going to keep half an eye on it in case it gets any kind of a squeeze going. And it would probably be similar to what I'm doing with GVO, WPCS, and QUIK, where if it does get spiking through 3, I'll use its highs from the other day of 325. When it had its big run off of news on the 27th. So any fast spikes up towards that area, I probably would short, but it's not a very likely play to happen, I don't think. But I'll have half an eye on it just in case. Same thing with iTech. iTech is really faded off the past few days. It has been 3 down days in a row, so maybe it's about due for a reversal here, but bounce plays are not my specialty. But iTech I'll probably watch, and if it does start bouncing and spiking, it is slightly gapping up right now, I guess. But if iTech does get some kind of a Friday squeeze going, I'm going to think about a short, maybe into a resistance level. And I'll look at a multi-day chart for that. But I know the big breakdown was the 1550 area. It held 1550 for a few days before finally snapping and really starting to speed up to the downside. So iTech is one also where I'm probably not going to try to nail a bounce on it, but if it does start running, I'm going to let the trade come to me and look to get short again into some sort of a previous resistance level. But those, oh, and then one last one, RJET. RJET, I had a really horrible short on a couple days ago and then swung it the day it had the big squeeze back on the 29th. And I was way early. I was in from something like 464, and it got as high as 588. It was kind of small size, so that's part of the reason I got stubborn and didn't really respect it, because I was just thinking, okay, I'll just add on the way up, which is of course always a dangerous way to try to trade. But it turns out that it did get weak. It did fade off some yesterday. I'm up a little bit on my swing position right now. It's not really anything I'm looking to add to or take any kind of new position on. But today I'm going to just at some point cover up that swing, depending on how it acts at the open. And it is gapping down a little bit right now. So as long as it stays weak, I'll just let it fade off and eventually get out. So we have about 13 minutes to go until market open here. Let me try to get through some of these questions. I'm going to try to do this in order of how they were asked. Someone asked no SONS on watch list today. Let me see if that's what I think it is. No, that isn't the one I thought it was. But no, I'm not watching this one, and it's actually not that bad of a daily chart, all things considered. And it is near a resistance area. I remember looking at this yesterday, and I can't really remember why I left it off, but I think it was just because I felt like I didn't like the daily range all that much. Even yesterday when it had a big green candle, it was about a $1.10 range on a stock that was $7. So, I mean, if you traded it perfectly yesterday, the most you could make is 13%. If you had bought at the low, sold at the high. I tend to like stocks a little more volatile than that, but it is 2 up days in a row. A few days ago, it was 591. So, yeah, that one might be worth watching for a short, but I'm a little overwhelmed with other things I'm watching this morning, so I probably will just stay away from that one. But that is a good eye. I do think that that's a nice looking chart. Someone asked if this is recorded, and yes, it is. So if you have to leave at any point today, don't worry. You can watch a recording later, see what you missed. GIG. GIG, it does look like it has broken out in the last couple of days. Volume's a little light for me, only 1.3 million shares traded yesterday, and it's just not up enough yet. I feel like I've missed a long on this already, and if I'm going to short it, I want it to have a couple more up days. I want it to get more extended. Someone asked about my scanning. I think I've answered that already. What scanner I use is Equity Feed right now. I know Stocks to Trade has a new version coming out soon, and I will test that out when it happens. But for now, Equity Feed's what I've used for the past couple of years. I'm very comfortable with it. I'm very happy with it. Should I be able to see the questions that other people ask? Oh, that looks like that's been answered already. Thank you, Ben. That one's been answered too. What do I consider as decent pre-market volume? That's two different things. Depends on whether I'm going to actually trade or trade at pre-market, or if I'm going to just be watching and try to have something on my radar. But like I said earlier, the scan I have right now, I have it set for $100,000 in volume. If I'm going to be trading, though, I probably want it to be a little more liquid. Is it possible to go over some basic fundamentals? I actually do not trade with fundamentals at all. I trade purely off of charts and technical analysis, and I'll get more into that later when I'm answering some of the questions you guys sent in. I answered that already. What website do I feel is best to use for finding these stocks that are gapping up? In other words, what is cleanest? I mean, you could run this scan with FinViz, you could run it with Equity Feed. I mean, pretty much any scanner can handle these three criteria that I have: price, volume, and how much it's up. So, I mean, if you don't want to pay for an Equity Feed subscription, you could definitely do finviz.com and play around with their free stock scanner and build something very similar for yourselves. So, I mean, any scanner will do. I wouldn't say one is all that much better than the other. Gapping up 12% in what time frame? Just stocks that are up 12% or more from their previous close. Will I be explaining how I made these picks for today? I can get more into that later, but basic, and you know, I'll also, when you watch the DVD, you'll see my process for building a watch list. But again, it's very similar scans I run at the end of the day. I'm looking for top percent gainers, stocks that traded major volume, and then I'm going through the scan results and looking for daily charts that look familiar to me and that I like. And that's how I narrow my list down a bit. But there'll be a lot more detail about that in the DVD, and I also will probably talk a little more on that a little bit later today. Let me catch up on questions a little more here. Can I show the level 2? I don't think I can without showing my whole screen, and if I do that, then everything's going to get really small for you guys, and I don't think you'll be able to see much of anything. So I think it's probably best just to keep it to the charts right now. I don't think GoToWebinar lets me just select a custom portion of the screen. It's either show the whole screen or show just one application. Ben, you can correct me on that if I'm wrong. How do you figure out cost per share for shorting? There's a tool and here I can actually show you it, I guess. Well, no, I can't. My account number's in it. I show you it in the DVD though. At Centerpoint, if a stock is not easy to borrow, they have a tool called the Locate Monitor. And you can go to the Locate Monitor, punch in how many shares you want, what the ticker is, and then they'll come back to you with an offer. And they'll say, okay, we can get you this many shares for this price. So each one's going to be different. That is specific to Centerpoint, though. I don't think most brokers have that. Here's a question I'll touch on later. Answered that already. Why am I only looking for shorts? I'm more comfortable short selling. I've really gotten that way in the last couple of years. Longs are tough for me, and it's something I'm working on. I am trying to do some more spreadsheet tracking and stuff like that. That was part of the reason I started tracking these gap ups so carefully. I have a spreadsheet full of these gap up plays over the last 2 months that have gapped up 12% or more on that 100,000 volume, and then seeing how they performed. Just to give you a quick idea, let me think. What's the number on that? Because it's a pretty surprising number. One sec, let me pull it up. I'm really curious now. It's something like in the past 2 months, ever since I started tracking the stocks that gap up more than 12% on 100,000 volume or more pre-market, only 15% have closed higher than they opened, which means after the gap up, 85% of them go down. So that's part of the reason I'm short biased. But also it's just a matter of comfort. It's hard. I don't like trying to guess which ones are actually going to spike. And that is more of a guessing game than waiting for the ones that do spike and come into your short area where you have a risk plan, you have, you know that you want to try to short and hope it goes down right around a key point that you've been watching. I feel like that's just a lot more sitting back, waiting, letting the trade come to you. When you ease into trades, does that mean you have to pay brokerage for each individual transaction? Yes, it does. I know brokers will charge you in 2 different ways, either per share or per trade. So, but I think either way, yes, the more shares you take, you're going to get charged. What matters for per trade is, let's say I wanted to short a stock at $5 and then I wanted to add at $5.50. I'd have to put in 2 different orders for that, so that counts as 2 trade tickets, and each ticket will get charged. So for a small account, scaling in and out, that really racks up the commissions. And if you rack up the commissions with a small account, it's really, really hard to get ahead. So I know when I first started, I was a lot more take 1 entry, take 1 exit, and try to keep the costs down a little bit. Do you monitor the news or ignore them completely and just focus on the technicals? I just focus on the technicals. Is the criteria for my morning scans the same as the criteria for my nightly scans? It's very similar. The big difference is that for my nightly scans, I'm looking for stocks that have traded a lot more volume. Pre-market, they haven't had a chance to trade a lot yet. They have the whole market day to go still. But at the end of the day, after hours and hours of trading, there's going to be a lot more volume. So I try to narrow my list down more based off of volume at the end of the day. Someone was asking about AREN, the Finest Penny Stocks promotion. And it looks like they just did start sending out emails a short time ago. That's getting pretty extended. I tried to short it yesterday unsuccessfully. I actually don't even know a chart up for it right now. It was pretty illiquid yesterday and kind of frustrated me. Maybe I'll pull that up later in the day if things slow down a little bit and I can eliminate a couple of these. Gevo, it looks like, is gapping up more now. And now what we're going to do now, since we only have a few minutes left, I'll get back to more of these questions later if I can. But right now, let me just explain a little bit about, again, how this morning's going to go. So I'm going to be focused mostly on trading here for this first 30 minutes to hour, depending on how fast things are. So if you have questions, you can go ahead and submit them, but I'm not going to be able to answer them right away. Again, I'll try to get back to them though. So once trading quiets down a little bit, I'll touch back on some of the things I did and why. So if you have any questions in that regard, please just go ahead and ask them. And wow, YRCW just printed 19, so that's really getting up there. But now let's just focus a little more on some of these stocks and how they gap up, how they open, and see if we can find any plays. I have a feeling it might be a little bit slower of a morning here. And I think my main focus out of the gate here is probably going to be on Gevo, since it is starting to gap up just slightly. I'd love for this to have a push towards 3, and then I'd start working my way in short a little bit. Yeah, Gevo, YRCW, VLTC. Still the main 3 I have intraday charts for in my charting software right now. And I do have other charts up through SpeedTrader. Again, I'm just trying to show you guys a little bit less so that things aren't ridiculously small on your screen if you are looking at that. So market's open here in about 10 seconds. And I'll be pretty patient out of the gate. I'm going to wait for, again, the stocks to come to me. I want my ideal entries. And if nothing comes up, nothing comes up. You know, YRCW opened up near 19. Hopefully that gets spiking a little bit towards 20 and we can see how it reacts up there. WPCS just dipped red. And that, I don't think I'm going to short WPCS into the weakness here, just because after how much it faded yesterday, it's really not up all that much anymore. Gevo just went red also, which is too bad. I was hoping one of these could spike. Now, sometimes when these do go red, if they wash out surprisingly hard, I'll start watching them through the rest of the day for some kind of a big rebound to short into. I like getting short into strength when the stock is very far off its lows, because I usually figure it's going to fade back off and retest that low area. Someone just asked how I keep track of all these stocks, and I do put them up, all of them on charts. I have about, on a typical day, I have about 8 charts up on my screen. So I watch it that way. Just gotta keep my eyes going back and forth and looking for the ones that might be having the spikes that I want to short into. Now VLTC opening kind of weak as well. Testing the green-red area. Gevo, this is a pretty hard washout, down from its 265 high down to 246 now in just a few minutes. Gevo is one maybe I will go ahead and try to put a few shares on into a bounce if it has one in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Risk it off of today's high. Yep, VLTC red now as well. YRCW is spiking up towards 20. That's not something I'll trade with any kind of size, but I may take a small starter there here in a minute. So right now, mainly I have my eye on YRCW, because that is actually giving me that spike into resistance. And Gevo, because I want that to have a rebound back towards the 265 area. And one thing I also wanted to say, guys, that I forgot to, please do not try to follow my trades if you aren't comfortable with the plan, if you don't understand why I'm making the moves that I'm making. I don't want it to turn into a situation where you tailed something that you weren't really comfortable with. And I mean, if it goes wrong, I mean, I'll be trading my plan. I just don't want you to kind of get lost in the trade and have a bad situation on your hands. Generally, I never recommend you follow anybody. That was a hard crack off of the 1998 area for YRCW. I was a little slow to pull the trigger. But that next rebound now I'm going to go for. So hopefully this next push on YRCW is a lower high, risking off of the 20 area, and I can get some short, and we'll see. Stock is up a lot, though. And I like these situations, especially with YRCW, where you have the spike and then the really hard snap. I mean, this just went down $1 a share in 3 minutes. I'm kind of ticked I didn't take a starter into the resistance like I said I was going to. But like I said beforehand, I'm a little more uncomfortable when it's the higher priced stocks, so I am a little more careful and miss sometimes. Man, I can probably take QUIK off my radar soon. That's very illiquid. I'm just kind of fading off slowly. A little bit of a rebound out of GEVO so far. Hopefully that gets a little bit higher and I can get some shares. Same thing goes for WPCS as QUIK. Just down into liquid and fading off. Not what I was looking for out of it for a play. Keeping my eye on my scanners as well. I'm starting to see some new stocks on there, but none of them seem all that interesting yet. RJET is fading off, which is nice. I'll probably start covering that soon. I like taking off into weakness. YRCW unable to bounce much so far. YRCW is under 19 now. So yeah, as much as I'd love to be making tons of trades for you guys right now, there's just not a whole lot happening that I can play at the moment. And I really don't want to force things. Well, sounds like we got some yard work going on outside, so I hope that's not too loud for you guys. GEVO a little bit closer to the red-green area, and I'll start shorting. And I'm pretty happy with this RJET morning fade so far. So I'm actually going to go ahead and cover my first half of that. So I took my first half at 435. YRCW perking a bit now. I'm going to slowly work into this. Back through 19. I have a feeling it does an over under 19. I'm taking a very, very small starter at 1910 because, and why it's so small is because that's about $1 a share off my risk in the 20 area. So eventually if I have to cut this position, I don't want the starter position to put me down huge right off the bat. So I'm in probably quarter size on YRCW, maybe fifth size. And if this push goes much higher, I'll get more aggressive. Oh yeah, sorry. Someone asked if I can clarify if I'm taking a long or short position. I will definitely do that. So I started in short on YRCW at 1910. So already slightly early on the starter. That was maybe a little bit impatient on my part. VLTC is back green. Hopefully we can get some fireworks there in a little bit. Oh wow, YRCW snapped right back down. I never put an ad on that. I had 2,000 shares from 1910. So now I could do one of two things. I could either cover up into this 1850 area since that supported last time, or I could hold out for lower. And right now I think I'm going to hold out for lower. This feels like one that's probably going to have a couple legs down. And that bounce right there topped out around 1930, and I feel like that's where the little first perk attempt off 19 failed as well, at 935. I know that candle stopped as a red candle, but I remember it having been green at one point and trying to push back up, and that's where it failed. So now we failed twice at 1930. So I could even sort of build in during this consolidation period and say 1930 is my risk. I don't think that's how I'm going to handle it. I'd rather use the 20 area, as I feel like that's a little more key. For now, I'm sitting back on my small size on YRCW though. VLTC, hard snap right back down. That's too bad. All right, well, I wait for a couple of these to play out. Let me just see a couple of the questions here. So repeat why I started YRCW at 1910. Because it was just small starter size and it was rebounding off of its lows. So I had a feeling that what it was going to do, I mean, I guess I was right at first. Now it's back over 19 again, but after that really hard snap and fade off of the 20 area down to 1850, it perked back through 19, and I had a feeling that that was going to be like a perk through move and then slam right back down. And it did slam down, it just didn't stay down. And percentage-wise, I know this isn't the most volatile thing right now. But I'm trying to think a little bit bigger picture on it. I think this has room to fade off more today. But anyway, it was just small starter size. I know it was a little far away from my risk, but I do that because I'm comfortable taking that small starter, and I know I'm comfortable adding higher as long as it's inside of this $20 area. YRCW, the level 2 is honestly something it's not something I'm using all that much right now. I trade listed stocks much more off of the chart than off of level 2. And I cover that a bit in the DVD and why. Level 2 is an awesome tool for picking turns on OTC stocks, but for listed stocks, it's much, much trickier because, I mean, listed stocks, they fill instantly. OTCs don't, and that's why you get that stacking action on the level 2 for those of you who have seen some of the free videos I put on my blog. Someone's wondering if I'm watching level 2 right now along with charts, and yes, I am. I do have level 2s up for all of these stocks, even though I just said, for something like YRCW, it's not incredibly useful. But no, I'll always have a level 2 up, I'll always have a chart up, but in some cases I'll focus on one a lot more than the other. Someone said if YRCW goes down more, what would be my criteria to add? And if it faded off more, like let's say it cracked below, like I guess I would like to see it snap below the 1850 area first if I'm going to think about an add. And then it'd be the same sort of thing. I'd be shorting into rebounds, I'd be shorting into the strength, and then I'd be a lot more comfortable using this 1930 area as my new risk. Right now, I've only seen it hold as a top a couple times, and it still could break through 1930. So I don't really want to use 1930 as my risk quite yet when I feel like 20 is the number that really matters. Here's a little more rebound out of GIVO. So if I do start to see YRCW have further breakdown, I mean, maybe I'll add into a pop, or maybe I'll even just cover into a flush down to the 18 or 1750 area and then reshort later so I can start fresh. How long do I hold the stock if it's going in the opposite direction? I hold it until my risk is breached. So in this case, like I said, I went really small and I was risking off of 20 on YRCW. So even though my starter's from 1910, I'm not going to be scared if it's at 1950. I'm not going to be scared if it's at 1975 because it's still within my risk. The chart is still within the bounds that I want it to hold below. But once it's over that, then it's time to cut the loss. Someone asked why I'm watching the daily chart on GIVO. That's just the daily I happen to have up right now. I'm going to be flipping through different daily charts throughout the day. So small rebounds towards green out of GIVO and out of WPCS. And while I could try short into WPCS, risking off of the red-green area, I think I'd rather, I mean, it's kind of a liquid. It's only traded 170,000 shares so far today. So that's one where I'd rather just sit back and hope it does have the big rip later. I don't really feel like getting into an illiquid trade right now that's only up 10 cents a share off of its lows. So the longer and longer YRCW turns below 1930, the more and more comfortable I am using that as my new risk. And part of that too is because if I can cut my starter at 1930 for a 20 cent a share loss, if it does breach through there, that makes it a lot easier for me to restart a bit higher towards 20. RJET has been slowly rebounding ever since my first cover at 435. So I'm glad I took a little bit off there. I still have half, unfortunately. VLTC is still holding up. It's been read a few times now, but it looks like it keeps on recovering. I'm not much of a dip buyer, but this is a situation with VLTC where it's had every reason to panic and it hasn't. So I'd perhaps consider a buy in this consolidation with a risk off of low of day. It's not a trade I'm going to take because I'm just less comfortable with them. And what I should do to get myself more comfortable with them is situations like this where I'm watching and I say, hey, I think this might be a dip buy. I should start making notes of it. I should track it in an Excel. I should see how often I'm right, how often I'm wrong. Because if I start seeing that I'm right way more often than wrong, that would give me the confidence to start buying these a little bit more. Trading is very much about confidence and having the conviction to stay in a trade. And building up my confidence when I started to find some consistent setups was a huge part of what helped me grow so fast. Someone asked if I longed or shorted at 1910 for YRCW. I shorted. Is HTCH something I would consider shorting? Probably not. I know it's up 23% right now, but it's only traded 315,000 shares. It's not very liquid right now. What does the daily look like on HTCH? And here we go, YRCW. That's starting to fade back again some more. So that's very nice to see. Last pull low was 1870. The low before that was about 1860, I think. So hopefully I get some snap here soon. Yeah, HTCH, I don't love the daily chart. I don't love the volume. So it's not one that I think I'd go after all that often. RJET is now green. RJET, if that had a big squeeze up towards the resistance level from yesterday, that's one that I could see myself possibly shorting into the strength. I know I still have 5,000 shares there, but I mean, I have no problem adding to it. Chances are, since it rebounded so well off of its lows here, peaked through for green, that next time it has a pullback, I'm probably taking off the rest. Trades like YRCW right now are just consolidating and going sideways. These are really hard to stay patient through because there's so many ways you can look at it and say, oh no, now it's perking up. Oh no, it's getting ready to squeeze. And that's just where you need to make sure you know what your plan is, you have your set risk, and you need to trust your plan. You're going to lose sometimes. It's okay to lose sometimes. And I'd much rather lose by having my stop loss hit than by covering randomly into consolidation because I'm getting impatient or I'm getting scared. Another little dip back here from YRCW. Oh, iTech is starting to squeeze. That's back into the 14s. Up off of about a $13 low from this morning. keep YRCW up. GVO's pretty liquid right now and slow. iTech, let's look at a few day 5-minute chart. So I'm looking at either areas that were very key that it snapped below, or maybe areas where spikes failed. And yesterday topped out a few times just over 15. So if this morning squeeze somehow gets up towards 15, I'd be very, very interested in getting short. So I have that number in mind now. And that also goes to the fact that there was a big daily support at 1550 that it snapped below that started this big fade off. And ever since that, the biggest pops have been 1530 a couple of times. So iTech, the higher the better. It's not quite where I want to start in on it yet, short. But yeah, if this gets another 40 or 50 cents up, I probably will start short selling. Let me just make sure I have it easy to borrow somewhere. All right, it's easy to borrow at Wedbush. RJet back red, starting to have that pullback I wanted for my cover. Hopefully pulls a little bit more than that, and then I can get out the rest. YRCW, this sure is slow and boring right now. Oh, should have been careful what I wished for. Now we got a spike. So now I have a decision to make. Do I cut it on a 1930 break, or do I average up like planned? And I've decided I'm going to average up like planned and keep my risk off of that 20 area. I don't like covering into strength. A lot of times you will see them stuff moves like this, where it's still under the main support level, and then use that for the next leg down. All these buyers who maybe just rushed in saying, oh, 1930 broke. Well, they sell the house into them, and then it just fades right back off. And there was a nice little volume spike there. It got to 1940. But so far, waxed right back down. So we'll see how it does here. If I'm going to put ads on, it's going to be closer to 20. Since my starter is so small though, again, I'm absolutely okay with using that wider risk. I have not averaged up on YRCW yet, so my average is still 1910. VLTC, that's starting to ramp up. Someone was asking where I find these stocks to borrow. I mean, it's in your broker. A lot of brokers will tell you either how many shares they have to short of something or whether it's easy to borrow or not. So for iTech, when I was looking for shares, and unfortunately that spike died off already, but when I was looking for shares of iTech, I checked Centerpoint ETC first. It was not easy to borrow. I checked Centerpoint Wedbush, and it was easy to borrow. So there you go. I found somewhere where it's shortable, and that's the account I'll play it in. If it had been hard to borrow at both, then I would have gone to the locate monitor tool that Centerpoint offers, punched in the symbol, and seen if they could offer me any. I would not consider shorting RJet right now. Short sell restriction is on, and this is turning into a little bit stronger of a rebound. Now, if I look at a couple-day chart and can find some resistance levels that it failed at yesterday or 2 days ago, then I'd probably start thinking about shorting it if it could get up near those levels. But right now, it's only 20 cents a share off of its lows. And it just reversed and went green. So I definitely don't want to rush in if I am going to put ads on or take a new short position on it. YRCW is still trying to perk a little bit more. See if you can get through that 1940 mark from that last perk attempt 5 minutes ago. How do I know when SSR is on a stock? It actually will say on a level 2 feed. Right now in the upper right corner of my RJet level 2 from DAS Trader, it says SSR. So that's how I know. If you don't have that, the other way you can know is if today or the previous day the stock was down 10% or more, short sell restriction is triggered. I talk about that more in the DVD as well. Wow, NETE, someone said take a look at that, and that is a big runner right now. And it's day 2 of the move. Still a little too cheap for me to short sell, but this is quite the parabolic out of it. If I look at the daily chart, I don't really see any clear-cut points to try to play into resistance. So that's one I could either try to wait for lower highs later today and then maybe take a short on it, or I could just let it keep running and revisit it on Monday. Where I'm going to put my focus right now is ITEK, because that is up to new highs of the day, and that's getting really close to that 1530-ish area that I think could act as resistance. I had someone ask what level 2 is. If you go to tradetheticker.blogspot.com and then click on the level 2 tab, I have a couple little videos about it that'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about. And it's also covered pretty extensively in the DVD. RJET back red again. NETE had a dip down to 42, but recovering now. Just out of curiosity, that is easy to borrow at ETC, okay. The last time I checked, ETC is what SureTrader clears through, so that means they should have shares too. YRCW looks like getting ready for a little more push. Another 1940 test. Another 1940 fail so far. And now snap right back to the low 19s. You say you hide your profit loss, but will you be able to share it with us when you close your positions? Absolutely. So RJET earlier, I had 10,000 shares from 463 that I had been swinging. I covered half of it at 435. So I've locked in 1,400 on RJET so far, and I still have half the position open. And YRCW is 2,000 shares short from 1910. So at the moment, unrealized, it's down a tiny bit, but it's not even really close to my risk level at this point, so I'm not at all concerned. I don't mind being down a position, and hiding that unrealized profit loss column really does help. When do I decide to get out of a losing trade? That is when my risk level is hit. And as the trade develops, my risk level may move. I may bring it down later to 1940 or 1950 or something like that. But for now, it's still the $20 area. My short sell price on RJET was 464 or 463. But it was by no means a good short. It was a short that I tried the other day when it was still spiking, and then I got stubborn with it. That was an example where my risk level was breached and I did not take the loss off, and it was a bit of a roll of the dice. More times than not, I get away with it, but every now and then, stock really surprises me. And if I start fighting it too much, that's how the Lake losses happen. That's how the PBMD losses happen. So it's a habit I'm really trying to break myself of, but I'm not perfect, and it definitely will take some time and a lot more concentrated effort. When, if ever, would I short NETE? That would be the first time I see a very hard snap off of its spike and then its rebound is a lower high. I would short into the strength on the lower high rebound. I'm seeing a lot of repeat questions that I answered earlier in the webinar, so if I don't answer your question, you can assume one of two things: either that I already have, or that it's in the DVD. So I'm sorry if I miss you, but if you either rewatch the webinar or check out the DVD, you'll see the answer there. iTech, I wish I had taken that starter. Nice fade. I wasn't kidding when I thought I'd miss a lot of trades. But I would much rather miss than put myself in a annoying situation. Yeah, I think we need to start watching NETE a little more closely. I'll put iTech off to the side. I'll come back to that later if I make a play on it. Quite the runner right now. Someone asked if you'll have access to this webinar later. Yes, you will. It is being recorded. It will be posted. The DVD will be online. Right now, there's no plans for a physical copy. I'm sure I'll put up some kind of a post to make everyone aware, though, if that does become an option. Someone said it seems like NETE's resistance is 50 cents, and I guess you could make a case for that based off of where this little perk topped out, but there was really no significant volume on that day. I know 50 is a key round number and all, but it's not one that I'm just going to blindly short into. At this point, I'm trying to play it much more off of the intraday chart than the daily chart. So that first time where, again, we have the hard crack, it looks like the trend might be changing. And then I'll start shorting pops, risking off of 5-day. Will this be added to the DVD? I don't know if we'll necessarily say like, hey, this is the end of the DVD, but there'll be a streaming link available. I mean, with the DVD. So either way, you're going to get it. Someone's asking about SGYP, and that has ramped up about 40 cents a share off of its lows so far. I actually have to go back a day on this. I need to see. If there's a tempting resistance area for me on SGYP, it's probably the 930 area. So I need this ramp to go a lot more. It topped out a few times, 920, 930, something like that yesterday. Why short NEAT? Why not buy and hold if it goes over 50? Because at this point, you would be chasing a spike. This stock was 12 cents yesterday. Now it's up near 50. And a 50 break by no means guarantees that it keeps going higher. I'm never going to chase this. And also, I guess the other half of it is that today, even today alone, it's up from 24 to almost 50 with really no significant pullbacks. And stocks don't just go straight up. So at some point, this is going to correct. So I'm never going to buy a stock that's already up 300%. I'd much rather take advantage of the fact that it's so overextended and look for a way to get short and fade it back. And just because I short sell doesn't mean that that is the top. It might just mean I'm short selling, looking to cover into a fade, and then I'll let it consolidate and see if it's going to go higher or not. Is VLTC starting to look interesting? It has failed 3 times now. It's had 3 spikes up towards 870, and every single time now it's had a hard crack off of that. So this is I could definitely see myself shorting a rebound on VLTC and using high of day as my risk. And it also aligns pretty well with that daily resistance level we were talking about. I didn't think I wanted to play off of it, but now that I see it failing there so much, the resistance from the 27th up at 885. And now it's topped out 3 times just below there. And this last one was even a lower high. So I could see myself shorting pops to get myself a little bit closer to my risk level of the 875, 885 area, and then seeing if this can fade off and crack a little day later. It's not a trade I'm going to say right now if I'm going to take or not. It kind of depends how high it spikes up and what my feel for it is, but it's a good thought. YRCW just slow and sideways. Someone asked what my cover target is on YRCW. I'd like to get it at new lows of the day. I'm a lot more flexible with my covers than I am with my entries. As I watch this chart develop, the longer and longer it doesn't give me that lower day crack, doesn't do what I want, the more and more I'll start thinking about taking a piece off somewhere. But I really try not to attach myself to, I want to cover at this price, and if it doesn't get there, I just keep holding, because sometimes it doesn't get there and then rips back, and I miss my chance to pay myself. Just to recap what positions I'm in now, just RJET and YRCW, both shorts. RJET is from a couple days ago. It was a stubborn swing, and luckily for me, it came back down. Even though it's a winning trade, it's a bad trade because I did not respect my risk. There's a lot of other stocks I'm looking for potential entries right now, but I haven't taken anything yet. And speaking of RJET, this has been, I think, that fade back I've been looking for to take off the rest. I said that it had a nice big strong spike off of its day's lows. It had gotten green for a little bit, and now it's had a period of weakness. So I think I want to cover into this weakness before it has a chance to ramp back up on me. If I was feeling patient, if it was a little more liquid, I would just put my order on the bid and let 445 fill. Oh, it just down ticked. That's nice. But I am going to fill on the offer. So I just put in a 445 cover order. I filled 1,500 shares of it, so I have 3,500 left, and now I'm sitting on that bid as the ARCA market maker. I'm hiding my size, and I'm slowly getting filled on the bid now. The red prints going through on the level 2 are hitting my order. I'm down to 2,000 shares. Can I show the RJET chart? Yes, I can. So it had this big ramp up off of 434, and now it's having a dip. And I don't know if this dip is going to consolidate and come back up and break day highs later. I don't know if it's going to continue to break down. So I'm not going to play the guessing game. Considering that this thing was 580 2 days ago, it's come down a lot off of that level. 434, the low today, that's a big drop. It's a Friday, short sell restriction is on, squeezes are a little more possible. So I'm gonna be cautious with it, and I'm just gonna take it off. I haven't totally filled yet though. I have 1,900 shares left. I'll let you know when I'm totally flat there. Now NETE, this is starting to weaken. This is probably the hardest dip off of its highs we've seen yet, or close. So I'm not chasing this weakness on NETE. I'm going to let it fade off, and then I'm going to look for strength to get short into, and I'll risk it off of that high of day area. Since it is right under a key round number of 50 cents, I probably will base the risk off of 50. But I wanted to see 50 fail first, and that's why I didn't just blindly short into it up here at 48.8. Can I talk through how I hid my size? That's actually going to be a lot easier if you just see it on the DVD. So I believe that's in chapter, I think that's in chapter 4. So keep an eye open in chapter 4 for that. Oh, RJET, I'm totally flat now. It did downtick a bit further. It's down to 442. Maybe this fades off the rest of the day without me, but in situations where I get stubborn and still make money, I consider myself lucky. So my realized on RJET is $2,300. And I'm probably just going to take that off my radar at this point because it is very illiquid. And I've had the play that I wanted on it. NETE, here's a little bit of a bounce back up right now. VLTC, I also said, I said that it's failed at perks quite a few times. Well, it's also failed at dips quite a few times. It's gone red something like 4 times today, and every single time it's saved. So a chart like VLTC, I mean, I could make a case for a long, I could make a case for a short. It's trading in a channel right now. It's between 875 the highs and about 815 the lows. So the way I would play something like this is I'd play off of the channel. If I want to short sell VLTC, if my bias is short, I want to short closer to my 875 risk. I want to short into the strength. Or if I want to buy dips, if I think it's going to go higher, I want to buy closer to this 815 risk. What I don't want to do is buy towards the top of a channel or short near the bottom. It's all about getting that entry that's closer to the risk level. So I'm not going to say a long or a short is incorrect right now. I could make a case for both plays. And I really don't know which way it's going to break. It's kind of a guessing game for me right now. And that's part of the reason I haven't taken the trade, because I don't have an overall bias. I could easily see this breaking down. I could easily see it ripping. But if I were to take either one of the trades, getting in near those risk levels is what would matter to me. Do I have OGen on my radar? That's another one that's very low volume, so no, I don't. I will look at the daily chart, though. I'm a little curious. Oh, yeah, right here. Oh, yeah, I traded that 2 days ago. I already forgot it. I guess that could be an interesting breakout, now that I know what ticker it is. And it did actually just barely set a new 52-week high. YRCW is about to go higher on me, I think. We'll see how 1940 reacts again. So far it's been grinding and holding up pretty well. But it's another case where even if 1940 breaks, it still has another 60 cents to go till it's near my risk level. And after that 1930 break earlier, I mean, it only made it a dime. Yeah, OGen, my main problem with it is liquidity. Let's see if this consolidates under 265 for a while. A penny above the previous breakout level. Or, yeah, 1 penny. If this consolidates for a while and builds a little bit of an ABCD breakout pattern, I probably would try along on the 265 break. So I'm going to keep that on radar. I'll replace probably GIVO. SGYP is hitting my resistance area. I did just get through 9, didn't it? So I will continue to watch. Why a long on OGEN instead of a short into resistance? Because this has felt like a lot slower of a climb, not a fast spike into a resistance level. And it's the second time it's testing now. I'm a lot more confident shorting into resistance on the first test. I feel like the first time usually it fails. But once you get to that second time or third time, I mean, there's nothing to say it can't break. Obviously, resistances don't always hold. Otherwise, stocks would always have a cap on them. They'd never get higher than previous highs. So sometimes they will break out, and with each attempt, I think it becomes more and more likely. Okay, I have OGEN up on a chart outside of what you guys can see right now. So I have half an eye on it. Just in case I miss it, feel free to mention if it starts ramping back up towards 265. But the longer it consolidates before breaking 265, the better, in my opinion. Wow, YRCW, another fail up towards 1940. The reason I'm more short biased on YRCW than VLTC, that was one of the questions here, is because the YRCW daily chart, I feel like, is a lot more extended than the VLTC daily chart. Like I said, this was 12 bucks 4 days ago, 5 days ago. VLTC, I mean, it's only up from 7 to 850, and it's held 7 so many times now. So it's just a matter of the daily extension. What does the big picture tell me? YRCW, we may start to see some panic here soon, hopefully. SGYP is through 9. What did I say my number was there? I already forgot. 930? I have to look back on it again. Yeah, 920, 930 area. More like 920, I think, if I remember right from yesterday. Yeah, I could see myself going after YRCW in a second here. And in fact, let's see. We've had two perks fail now at 905. Yeah, YRCW, I'm sorry, SGYP, I plan on taking a starter soon on. As long as it doesn't fall off a cliff right here without me. And when I say a starter, I mean a starter short. What do I think my reward could be on YRCW? You know my risk is 20. I think my reward could be $18, maybe a little bit lower even. Now, obviously, the starter I took a little bit too far away off of the risk, so it's not the best risk reward. I'm not necessarily getting 3-1. But I don't necessarily believe you always have to get 3-1 risk reward or anything like that. I mean, I could have 1-1 risk reward and be happy. If it's a setup, I win 90% of the time. Man, some of you guys are giving me great alerts today on stocks and what prices they're at, and I just haven't pulled the trigger. SGYP, I'm going to go for that soon. I just don't like chasing weakness. And it feels silly, really, because it's only down 8 cents a share off of the day's high. Nice ramp back by YRCW after the crack down to 19. Just tried to break 1940. Now speeding up a little, maybe. We'll see how 1950 reacts. Kind of going between keeping an eye on YRCW right now and an eye on SGYP. NETE held 40, that's good to see. SGYP, okay, back over 9. Someone asked, where's the chat room for the webinar? There's just the question submission form. A chat room would just get too chaotic, and I'd get absolutely buried in questions and have to dig through a lot. Would I short NETE around this price? I like that it's into strength off of 40, but I'd like it a little bit higher, closer to that 48.8 risk area or 50-cent risk area. I'm taking an SGYP starter at $9. I've only filled 1,600 shares right now. I'm going for 5,000. That 920 area is going to be my risk. So $1,000, that's a very comfortable risk for me. If it does manage to go a little further, I would take a bit larger of size. And there we go. I have my full SGYP starter now. Now, YRCW, when I first put this trade plan together, I was thinking fast spikes towards 20 I'd like to add short. But this has been a slow grind. This is basically building an ABCD. So now I'm questioning whether or not I really want to put ads on. It's starting to feel a little more likely that this might break the 20 area. This trade hasn't really gone according to plan for me. The main trade, which I missed earlier, was the morning spike from the 19 area up to 20, that fast rush into resistance. And then it had the hard crack and fade. I mean, it basically went $1.50 off of its highs. That was the play, and I missed it. And then I was hoping I can short rebounds and it would fade back off and crack to new lows. But instead, it's just been doing this slow grind up with higher lows all morning. Now, I still don't necessarily want to cut this before it gets through 20 because that is such an important level on the chart. But because of the nature of how it's getting there, because it's a slow grind instead of a fast spike, I'm probably just going to sit on my small size starter position. SGYP, someone asked if 920 being the high pre-market is the reason that's my risk. It has more to do with the fact that there were a couple spike attempts that topped out there yesterday than it has to do with pre-market. And yeah, since I'm in SGYP, I'll go ahead and pull that up. I'll replace VLTC. Obviously, that is still on radar, but we'll focus on the ones that I'm in right now. Someone asked how to determine size of shares. I cover that a lot in the DVD. I'm going to go over it later when I get into some of the questions you guys sent in, so I'm going to hold off on that for now. To confirm, yes, I am short SGYP right now at $9. Someone asked about shorting the NYMX support crack at 240 if it does break down. That is an important multi-day level. I hate the liquidity there, and even when it's a multi-day level, I don't love shorting weakness, but I would consider it. I do still have the chart up, so we'll see. I mean, I guess I'd almost rather short into this little 8-cent slow climb it's been having and risk it off of red green or something like that than get it into weakness when it might be cracking a certain level. Whoever just submitted a question, please resend it. I accidentally deleted that one instead of the NYMX one. NETE, nice little ramp up here. We're getting closer to that 50-cent area. Yes, I am still short YRCW. While it is an ABCD type chart on YRCW, it is encouraging to me that every single time this breaks a level, it makes it maybe a dime and then gets stuffed. It hasn't had any kind of really fast squeeze upticks or anything like that. How many trades will I take at a time? It really depends on the day. I think I'd be overwhelmed if I took more than 4. I remember one day earlier this year, I think I was in 7 positions at once. That was too many. That was a really busy morning. OGEN, yes, that is starting to curl back up a little bit now. How do I exit when it breaches my limit? Do I hit the offer or buy the pulls? I'd say I hit the offer more often than not. It is situational though. Any recent big wins or losses? Nothing too notable. I took an ugly loss on ITEK last week that I think was about 18,000, which was really frustrating because I've been having a great day up to that point. But oh, what happened there? I can't even remember. Oh, basically, ITEK, what happened to me on that trade was I took a small short into weakness because I thought it was about to break down, and then I was wrong, and then I held stubborn because I said, well, my size is small, who cares? And then it came back $4 on me. It might have been the worst trade of my career. I was thinking about it, and it was really funny just because I shorted dead low of day, and I covered something like 20 cents a share off of the high of day. So it was just brutal all around. And even though it was a small starter size, I mean, even that can turn into a bad loss sometimes. I plan to update Profitly this weekend, so that trade will get posted. Little perk back through 9 by SGYP. I might start in on an NETE soon, short. Doesn't seem to have a lot in the tank right now. And it hasn't been over 45 cents for quite a while. So yes, this 45 could be considered a lower high forming, someone asked. No guarantees the trader, oh, there we go, just perked right through, so good thing I hadn't shorted yet. But even 46 could be a lower high maybe. You're never going to have a guarantee when you enter a trade. You're never going to know for sure the top is in or the bottom is in. And I know that lack of certainty can be uncomfortable, but as long as you size in accordingly, as long as you plan your risk accordingly, stick to your risk levels, you really have nothing to worry about. You're going to take losses in trading. That's just how it is. What differentiates the successful traders from the unsuccessful traders is who can control their losses and who can't. Someone asked if the DVD is coming out August 1st. Yes, it is. Saturday it will release. I'm hoping around noon or so. But it will definitely be out on the 1st. Did I consider holding ITEK overnight when my loss happened? No, I didn't, because it was still the front side of the move. I think it was that day 2 where its high of the day was 1945. And at that point, with the stock, very green on the day, still the front side of the move, I was very scared. I didn't know if it was going to gap up to 20 and rip to 25 the next day. There was no overhead resistance. There were no more resistance levels protecting me. So it never crossed my mind to swing. That's the big difference between ITEK and what I did with RJet. Because RJet, there still were plenty of overhead resistance levels. I felt very safe. SGYP had a little perk through high of day, but failed to follow through so far. And it is still under that 920 level. YRCW is boring? Yes, you are absolutely right, it is. NETE is still grinding back a little bit, but this is a very tempting short area. I'll sit back on it a little bit longer. Still very early in the day. For those of you who just joined, just to recap what I've done so far today. I'm in an SGYP short, a small starter from $9 that I'm currently slightly down on, risking off of 920. I'm in a YRCW short, also a small starter from 1910. And the longer this grinds, the less I like it. Although I'm not going to panic out before my risk is hit. But I also probably won't add to it at this point because it has been a slow climb back, not a fast spike back into resistance. I'm stalking NETE for a potential short, and I covered up an RJET swing from a couple days ago. How is NETE a tempting short area? It's climbing back up to its high of the day. Well, it's tempting because big picture, it's up from 12 cents. And because the closer it gets to its high of day, the smaller my risk would be on the short. So that's why it's tempting to me. Doesn't mean it would definitely work, but my risk would be very controlled, and the higher it gets, the more overextended the daily chart gets, the more and more comfortable I am. What's my goal for SGYP? I'd like a fade back into the 870 area. So I'm not shooting for a huge profit here. It's another one where it's not the most volatile stock in the world. It's a slow day though, so I'm kind of making do. I like the chart pattern, so I'll give it a shot even though it's only for a few percent gain. But typically I like a lot more volatility than this has to offer. Good question I saw on NETE. How do I differentiate it being up from 12 cents as opposed to down from $1.40 a few months ago? And that actually helps my short bias because all these people who had bought NETE over the last year and held are massively underwater. So you're going to have plenty of sellers overhead who also help hold this down to a degree. I know that if I was way down on a stock and it had a nice big rally, I'd probably be looking to take off some of my shares. Oh, NETE has SSR on. I missed that till just now. I might have been a little more aggressive with taking a starter up into that strength because now that it's weak, it's going to be really tough to get a fill because I can't hit the bid. Do you not follow any news, just strictly price action? I'll have the very basic idea. I don't want to be in a stock if I know that like a important decision could be announced at any moment. They could spike the stock or tank the stock. I don't like feeling like it's just a total gamble. So I'll have a basic idea if anything like that is happening. But other than that, I don't care about news at all. It's just price action for me. Does SSR apply to stocks that are massively up too? It can, because basically the way it works is if the stock was down 10% or more yesterday, SSR gets triggered and it stays on for the remainder of that day and then the following day. So that's exactly what happened with NETE. It was down 10% or more yesterday, SSR got triggered, and even though it's up 87% today, it's still on. Kind of the regulator's way of rigging the market to make sure that it doesn't go down too much. VLTC, nice spike up towards the highs here. Really hope that gets silly. When I'm referring to price action, I'm referring to the chart and level 2, I guess, but mostly the chart. And how the chart is moving and how those moves look to me. VLTC is just about at new highs of the day here. and now it is new highs of the day. So that 885 or whatever that number was from a few days ago is still in play. That's still overhead. And this was a pretty fast spike straight up from 840. So I'm not really all that tempted to buy into this high of daybreak. Do I trade anything other than OTC stocks? Yes, everything I've been trading today is listed. VLTC on the main screen. Gosh, I really don't want to get rid of any of these other ones. We'll look at an intraday VLTC chart instead of a daily chart for a little bit. In fact, let me look at a multi-day chart really quick on it. So yeah, 885 the other day. That's the number I have in mind. If it gets through 885, I might start looking for where do dips hold and think about buying higher lows. It's still just a little bit early for me on it. But if this is holding up well and it's through that 885 mark, I think it's a pretty solid risk-reward trade to buy some dips and look for a spike up towards the high nines. So I'll keep you posted on whether I do that or not. Right now, it looks like it's failing its first attempt at 885. We'll see how it sets up the rest of the day. OGEN 2.6. Okay, so we're getting close to the high day there as well, in the 265 breakout area.